Imagine you invest in, like, a state-of-the-art security system for your house.
Right, the whole setup.
Exactly. You install the heavy steel doors, the biometric deadbolts, motion sensors, and you lock up at night feeling totally secure.
As you should.
Yeah. But what nobody told you, because it was buried on, like, page 47 of the installation manual, is that the architectural blueprint of your house legally allows anyone to build a grandstand in your backyard.
Oh, wow. Just right there in the yard.
Right there. And they can take exhaustive notes on everything you do through your windows.
Yeah.
And then just sell those notes to whoever's willing to pay.
Which completely flips the script on the whole idea of safety, you know?
It really does.
Because you're walking around inside, taking all these personal precautions, completely oblivious to the fact that the deadbolt on the front door is, well, it's purely decorative, while the back of the house is entirely transparent.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking an exclusive look at the source material from veteran trial lawyer Mitch Jackson.
Specifically, his startling new book, Privacy in America.
Yes. Our mission today is to unpack the structural foundation of how our digital lives are being harvested.
Because Jackson's book is honestly this exhaustive, real-time survival guide for navigating the modern internet.
It is. But for this deep dive, we are focusing strictly on the foundational bombshells in Chapter 1, which is titled, "The Privacy You Trust Isn't Real."
It's the absolute perfect place to start. I mean, Jackson has spent decades as a trial lawyer.
Right, so he knows the system.
Exactly. He's been in the trenches watching ordinary people get legally outmaneuvered and just absolutely crushed by fine print, data brokers, and corporate negligence.
And Chapter 1 serves as the structural blueprint of how that exploitation is not just possible, but entirely legal.
Yeah, it exposes the massive legal loopholes that leave you, the listener, completely vulnerable on a daily basis.
And throughout this deep dive, we're going to explore exactly why those loopholes exist.
And later, we'll tease a few of the jaw-dropping specific threats detailed in the rest of the book, right?
Oh, absolutely. We have to show you exactly why grabbing a copy of this book is essential for locking down your family's safety.
For sure.
But to kick things off, we need to look at a statistic from Chapter 1 that, honestly, it made me stop reading and reread the page.
I think I know which one you're talking about.
The United States is the only G7 nation on Earth without a comprehensive federal privacy law.
It is a staggering reality check, especially when you put it in a global context.
Yeah, because we always assume, right, we assume that because the U.S. is this huge hub for technological innovation, it must also be a leader in digital regulation.
Right, but the exact opposite is true. I mean, 144 other countries protect their citizens' digital rights with sweeping national legislation.
144.
Yeah, but here in the U.S., we rely on this totally fractured state-by-state patchwork.
It essentially functions like a digital passport that just arbitrarily expires the second you drive across the state line.
Exactly, like geographical Russian roulette.
Right. Your fundamental right to privacy shouldn't depend on your zip code, but under the current system, it absolutely does.
And to understand the mechanics of how this plays out, we really have to look at the stark contrast Jackson lays out between states.
Like California versus, say, Alabama.
Yeah, perfect example. If you live in California, you're operating under a relatively strong umbrella of consumer protection.
Because they have that DRP platform, right?
Yes, the delete request and opt-out platform. It allows a California resident to literally click a single button and legally force 545 registered data brokers to wipe their data.
Wait, and we should probably clarify what data brokers actually are for anyone unfamiliar.
Oh yeah, good point.
Because these aren't the websites you visit directly, like a news site or a store.
No, these are the invisible third-party companies. They scrape, aggregate, and package your digital exhaust.
Your location, your purchases, your browsing history.
Right. They package all of that into profiles that they sell for profit. They are basically the invisible economy running beneath the internet.
And California residents can just wipe their profiles from those brokers.
Yep. Furthermore, if a company is negligent and loses your data in a breach, California law grants you the right to sue them directly for statutory damages.
Which is huge, because it means you don't have to hire some expensive forensic accountant to prove exactly how many dollars you lost to a hacker.
Exactly. The law guarantees a specific financial payout just for the violation of your privacy itself.
But then you cross the border into a state with no comprehensive privacy law.
Like Alabama, New York, Pennsylvania.
Right. And roughly 30 other states fall into this unprotected category.
And in those unprotected states, you have zero legal rights to demand that a company delete your data.
Zero.
You don't even have a legal mechanism to force them to tell you what they know about you in the first place.
So two people can download the exact same application, suffer the exact same catastrophic data breach,
And the Californian has full legal recourse to demand compensation.
while the other person has absolutely nothing.
Nothing at all. Which, brings up the macro question. Why is the U.S. so uniquely far behind the rest of the developed world?
Yeah, why are we the outlier here?
Well, Jackson explains it comes down to regulatory philosophy and, honestly, the path of least resistance.
I see.
Take the European Union, for example. They treat privacy as a fundamental human right.
Right, the GDPR.
Exactly, the General Data Protection Regulation. And they enforce it ruthlessly.
Yeah, you see those headlines about massive fines.
Right. American tech companies are paying billions of dollars in fines to the EU for privacy violations.
But because the U.S. government refuses to establish a baseline of protection here at home,
American citizens become uniquely vulnerable targets. Our data is literally the path of least resistance.
so we are essentially subsidizing the privacy of European citizens.
Basically, yeah. Because our own companies can extract our data with near impunity while they have to tread very carefully overseas.
Okay, hold on. I have to play devil's advocate here for a second because I'm getting a bit lost in the blame game.
Sure, go for it.
If the federal government isn't protecting us, what about our own personal responsibility?
Okay.
I mean, every time I download a new app or visit a website, I get a pop-up, and I click a button that says, I agree.
Right, the classic consent banner.
Yeah. So if I'm an adult and I click the button to use a service, isn't a contract a contract? Aren't we actively consenting to this exchange?
See, that is the grand illusion of the modern internet, and it's the exact defense the tech industry relies on.
But isn't it legally binding?
Well, Jackson completely dismantles this notice and consent model in Chapter 1 by exposing the impossible math behind it.
The impossible math.
Yeah, because notice and consent assumes a level playing field, right, where both parties actually understand the agreement.
Right, but the math he provides proves that understanding the agreement is literally beyond human capacity.
Exactly. Get this. The average American encounters 1,462 unique websites every single year.
And most of those privacy policies have ballooned to over 4,000 words.
Written at a college reading level or higher, and packed with dense legal jargon.
So if you actually sat down and read every privacy policy you encountered, just to achieve that informed consent we were talking
It would
about,
take you 244 hours a year.
that is 76 full workdays.
Yeah.
2.5 months of a full-time job just reading terms of service agreements.
And if every American actually engaged in that process, the lost human capital would cost the U.S. economy $781 billion in lost productivity annually.
That is wild.
So the entire digital ecosystem is mathematically built on the absolute certainty that you will never, ever read the document you're signing.
Which leads to this darkly comedic academic experiment Jackson cites in the book. It highlights our systemic blindness perfectly.
Oh, the social network one. That is a classic.
Yes, researchers set up a fake terms of service agreement for a new social network. And buried deep inside the text was a Herod clause.
A Herod clause.
Yeah, it explicitly granted the company the naming rights to the user's firstborn child.
Which is a completely absurd, legally unenforceable demand.
Totally absurd. Yet 98% of people clicked. I agree.
Because of course they did.
But the part that really proves how broken the system is, 11% of those users later claimed in a follow-up survey that they thoroughly read the entire agreement.
Wait, really? 11%?
Yes, they read it, and they still missed the fact that they just signed away their firstborn child.
Because the human brain is not equipped to process that volume of dense defensive legalese while trying to accomplish a simple task.
Like checking the weather or, reading an article.
Exactly. And this is where we have to look at the actual mechanisms of how these clicks are obtained. It's not a neutral administrative choice.
Right.
Jackson introduces the concept of dark patterns.
Ah, dark patterns. These are the manipulative psychological design tricks we see everywhere, right?
Yes, but it goes way deeper than just annoying pop-ups. These interfaces are engineered by teams of behavioral scientists.
Specifically to exploit human neurology.
Right. They use tactics that artificially increase your cognitive load and trigger decision fatigue.
So by the time you navigate through like 3 different screens of cookie preferences,
Your prefrontal cortex, The part of your brain responsible for complex decision-making is completely depleted.
So your brain naturally defaults to the easiest escape route to relieve that friction.
Exactly. So when the accept all button is massive and bright green, and the manage preferences button is microscopic gray text hiding in the corner.
That's not an aesthetic choice.
No, not at all.
That's a targeted psychological attack on my working memory.
It absolutely is. And Jackson brings up a perfect example of this with Amazon.
The cancellation process.
Yeah, they had an internal multi-page process for canceling a Prime membership that was so notoriously difficult, the engineers literally named it the Iliad Flow.
Like the ancient Greek epic about the Trojan War.
Exactly.
A grueling, decade-long siege just to cancel free shipping.
A very apt name, honestly. They design a gauntlet of emotional appeals, confusing navigation, and visual misdirection. Oh, and didn't they use a tactic called confirm shaming?
Yes, where the button to decline a service is phrased to make the user feel foolish, like clicking "No thanks, I prefer paying full price."
Right, just to make you second guess yourself.
And when the Federal Trade Commission eventually sued them over this, internal documents revealed something fascinating.
What was it?
Every time Amazon made the cancellation process simpler, cancellations naturally went up.
Wow.
So they intentionally maintained the confusing architecture. When you're clicking "I agree," you aren't engaging in a fair contract.
You are experiencing coercion by exhaustion.
Coercion by exhaustion. That is the perfect way to phrase it.
That perfectly describes the modern web experience.
Yeah.
The system is designed to wear you down until surrendering your data is the only way to get on with your day.
Completely.
So if consent is an engineered illusion, and companies are designing systems specifically to exhaust us, how do we fight back?
Short of just unplugging our routers and quitting the internet. Right, assuming we still want to participate in modern society. That brings us to an automated defense system Jackson outlines in the book.
Yes. Global privacy control.
This is a vital piece of the puzzle because it shifts the focus from passive victimhood to actionable defense.
Yeah, global privacy control, or GPC, is essentially a technical countermeasure to the impossible math of reading thousands of privacy policies.
Let's break down exactly how it works, because it's not just another pop-up blocker, is it?
No, not at all. GPC is a hidden setting at the browser level.
Okay.
When you enable it, it injects a specific snippet of code into the HTTP header of your web traffic.
So before a website even finishes loading on your screen,
Your browser has already transmitted a silent, automated, and legally binding "do not sell or share my personal information" signal.
that is brilliant. The mechanism happens in milliseconds in the background.
Exactly. You don't have to hunt for the tiny gray opt-out link on 1,000 different banners anymore.
But we should probably differentiate GPC from the old do not track settings that existed a decade ago.
Oh, absolutely. That's a crucial distinction. Because do not track was essentially a polite request that the tech industry universally decided to just ignore.
Right. It had no teeth.
Exactly. Do not track was completely voluntary. But GPC interacts directly with the state laws we discussed earlier.
Like in California, Colorado, and Connecticut.
Yes. In those states, businesses are legally required to detect and honor that GPC signal. It acts as a valid, enforceable opt-out under the law.
So if a company receives that HTTP header and sells your data anyway,
They are committing a finable offense.
that is huge. But of course, there is a massive catch, and this is why everyone listening needs to check their devices the minute this deep dive is over.
There's always a catch.
There is a huge divide in the browser market. Browsers that build their entire brand around privacy, like Brave or DuckDuckGo.
They have GPC enabled by default.
Right, and Firefox makes it relatively easy to turn on in the settings. But the absolute giants of the market, Google Chrome and Apple Safari.
They do not support it out of the box, which is incredibly telling when you consider their business models.
Seriously. To use GPC on Chrome, you have to go out of your way to find, evaluate, and install a third-party extension.
Now, there is some legislative hope on the horizon, right?
Yes, California recently passed the Opt Me Out Act,
Oh, right.
which is going to legally force major browsers and operating systems to include a built-in, easy-to-find GPC toggle by 2027.
That'll be a game changer. But until that goes into effect, you really have to take the initiative to arm your own browser.
Which brings us back to the legislative elephant in the room.
Right.
If tools like GPC exist and clearly work, And if polls consistently show that over 80% of Americans across the entire political spectrum want strict data privacy laws.
Why hasn't Congress passed a comprehensive federal privacy law in over 25 years?
Exactly. And when you look at the sheer scale of the lobbying money Jackson details, the gridlock makes perfect cynical sense.
It really does, because this isn't a partisan issue. It's a bipartisan failure driven entirely by capital.
In 2024 alone, the tech industry spent $250 million on federal lobbying.
$250 million. That is $250 million in a single year.
Deployed specifically to paralyze the legislative process and maintain the status quo.
And that lobbying money is highly targeted. For a quarter of a century, comprehensive privacy bills have been introduced in Congress, and they almost always die over two very specific, highly technical arguments.
What's the first one?
The first is the debate over whether a federal law should be a ceiling or a floor.
Okay, and that sounds like dry bureaucratic jargon, but it is actually a kill switch for consumer rights.
A total kill switch. Industry lobbyists aggressively push for a federal law that acts as a ceiling.
Which involves a legal concept called preemption, right?
Exactly. Basically, if a weak federal ceiling is passed, it preempts or legally overrides and nullifies any state law that is stronger.
So a weak federal ceiling would instantly wipe out California's strong protections.
Precisely. The tech industry wants one unified, weak law across the whole country.
It's so much easier for them to manage.
Right. On the other side, privacy advocates demand a federal law that acts as a floor.
A baseline.
Yes. A floor establishes a baseline standard of protection for everyone in the country, protecting citizens in states like Alabama, but leaves states free to pass even stricter laws on top of it.
And that ties directly into the other major roadblock you see in these congressional debates, which is the private right of action.
Yes, a massive sticking point.
We touched on this with California earlier. The question is, should an ordinary citizen have the legal right to hire a lawyer and sue a tech company directly when their privacy is violated?
And the tech industry fights tooth and nail against the private right of action.
I bet.
They argue that allowing citizens to sue will lead to, frivolous lawsuits that bankrupt innovation.
So who do they want enforcing the rules?
They want enforcement power to belong exclusively to federal regulators like the FTC.
But the reality is that federal regulators are massively underfunded and understaffed compared to the legal armies of Silicon Valley.
Exactly. If the FTC is the only entity allowed to sue, tech companies know they only have to worry about a few major lawsuits a year.
It just becomes a manageable cost of doing business rather than a true deterrent.
Right. And for 25 years, the industry's preferred answers, federal ceilings and no private lawsuits, have successfully kept us unprotected.
It's infuriating.
It is. Jackson's first chapter brilliantly lays out this structural failure. He explains the architecture of the unlocked house.
But to truly grasp the daily physical danger this architecture puts you in, you have to look at how that stolen data is actually weaponized in the rest of privacy in America.
Because the foundation is just the beginning.
Exactly. Chapter 1 is the foundation, but the rest of the book shows you who is actually walking through those unlocked doors.
Right.
I want to give you just a few rapid-fire teasers from the later chapters, because understanding this structure is only step 1.
Go for it.
For instance, in Chapter 2, Jackson explores the raw reality of data brokers. Because there is no federal floor protecting us, companies are legally selling profiles that include your estimated income, your specific medical condition.
And even your social security number.
Yes, to anyone with a credit card. And they are selling this deeply sensitive data for literal pennies per person.
It's sickening. And then you look at Chapter 3, which focuses on the device sitting in your pocket right now.
Oh, the smartphone tracking.
Yes, your seemingly harmless smartphone apps,
Yeah.
your local weather app, a free flashlight app, a puzzle game.
They are quietly broadcasting your exact GPS coordinates to invisible advertising auctions up to 747 times every single day.
Think about that. 747 times. They are logging exactly where you sleep, what specialized medical clinics you visit, and where your kids go to school.
And the implications of that data being freely available are terrifying. But what's truly chilling is how this aggregated data fuels emerging next-generation threats.
Like what Jackson details in Chapter 9.
Chapter 9 is an absolute nightmare scenario that is happening right now. It covers how artificial intelligence has turned fraud into a $12.5 billion weapon.
It's wild. Because our digital footprints are completely exposed, scammers are scraping just 3 seconds of audio from public social media posts.
3 seconds is all they need to perfectly clone the voices of teenagers.
And then they use those cloned voices to call terrified parents, simulating a live kidnapping.
And extorting thousands of dollars in ransom money before the parents can even verify where their kids are.
If we synthesize all of these threats back to the foundational lessons of Chapter 1, the causal through line is undeniable.
It really is.
Because there is no federal privacy law, and because the idea of digital consent is a manufactured fiction, every intimate detail of your life is legally up for grabs.
I mean, Chapter 14 details how the DNA data of 15 million people was auctioned off in a bankruptcy court to the highest bidder.
DNA. And Chapter 5 explores how the computer inside your own car is logging your driving habits, every hard brake, every acceleration.
And sharing it with data brokers who feed it back to insurance companies to raise your premiums.
Jackson's book isn't some dystopian novel about what might happen in the future. It is a meticulous documentation of what is legally permissible today.
But, and this is why this deep dive is so important, it is not hopeless.
No, not at all.
The best part of privacy in America is that it doesn't just leave you terrified and paralyzed. The final chapter, Chapter 21, is literally a 30-minute tactical action plan.
Which is so necessary after reading all of that.
Jackson walks you step by step through exactly how to lock down your smartphone, freeze your credit, configure your browser, and secure your home network.
It takes the overwhelming complexity of the digital ecosystem and distills it into actionable steps. It shifts the power back from the corporation to the individual.
Exactly. So to wrap this up, the data brokers and tech giants harvesting your life are banking on you staying overwhelmed.
Right. They design these systems to induce decision fatigue.
So you conclude it's just too complicated to fix, keep clicking I agree, and remain a passive participant in their business model.
But as Mitch Jackson writes, you didn't agree to be the product.
And you don't have to remain the product.
Because knowledge is only valuable when it is applied to change behavior.
Right. So your immediate call to action today, go check your web browser settings. See if you can turn on global privacy control natively.
Or take 3 minutes to install a trusted extension like Privacy Badger or DuckDuckGo.
Yes. Look up your state's specific privacy laws. Find out if you're living in a state with a strong digital shield or a state that leaves you entirely exposed.
That's crucial.
And most importantly, I highly recommend picking up a copy of Privacy in America by Mitch Jackson so you can execute that full 30-minute lockdown plan for your family.
I completely agree. And I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over something that builds on everything we've discussed today.
Okay, let's hear it.
We've established how valuable your behavioral data is right now. But consider where this goes next.
Oh boy.
If AI models can already clone a human voice and orchestrate a flawless extortion scheme using just 3 seconds of audio today, what happens in 5 or 10 years?
Right, as the tech gets even better.
Exactly. Data brokers aren't just selling your current location. They are feeding decades of your aggregated behavioral data into predictive AI models.
Predictive mod.
Models designed to calculate exactly what you will buy, how you will vote, and what emotional triggers will manipulate your decisions before you are even conscious of them.
Which fundamentally changes the stakes of the entire conversation.
Exactly. So the next time you blindly click, I agree to bypass a wall of text, ask yourself, are you just trading a few data points for access to a website?
Or are we collectively surrendering our right to a future where our choices actually belong to us? That is definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.